Hi everyone, it's Lindy. We're going to do an impromptu video in the back of my vehicle. Hey, if you're game, I'm game. Let's do this thing. So today I want to do almost like a side-by-side comparison or a discussion of selling items on eBay versus selling items on Poshmark. Now I have a lot of things that I want to discuss, so feel free to take notes. I know I did. I'm reading off of my notes while we do this video actually, because there's a lot of stuff to cover and I really can't outline it for you guys, so feel free to take notes. You might find it useful. Now, of course, these opinions are mine. I am doing them as completely unbiased as I can, and really the whole purpose of this video is to just try to help you find which platform you might be better suited for. So I've got all of the good stuff for each platform, all of the bad stuff for each platform, and then the little different things of each platform. So let's get started. Okay, so the first really big difference between the two platforms is on eBay you can list essentially anything you want, but on Poshmark you can only list clothing items and accessories. So right there, if you don't really sell a lot of clothing or you're not really big into selling accessories, then obviously eBay is going to be the platform for you. You might as well not even bother with Poshmark. But if you do sell clothing and accessories, keep watching. Now, we're gonna start off talking about the sites as a whole. So, the first really big that stands out for eBay versus Poshmark is definitely the buyer base. eBay is a much more well-known platform with a lot more buyers. I think the last time I looked at the comparisons, there was something like 15 to 20 times more buyers on eBay than on Poshmark. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that eBay is a worldwide site, where Poshmark is an app that only currently services the United States. So being limited to only the United States really limits your buyer pool. So selling on a platform like eBay, where they have a program like the global shipping program, where you can ship worldwide with ease, really, Poshmark right now can't exactly compete with that. However, I have heard numerous times that Poshmark is looking to branch out their app worldwide, so eBay better look out. Now, keeping that same idea in mind, it's also thought that eBay and Poshmark both have completely different pools of buyers. So because Poshmark is basically an app that has recently gone over to the desktop, the buyers on Poshmark appear to be younger. They are utilizing apps more like Instagram or Snapchat. They really like the social aspect of Poshmark, and they like the ease of shopping on Poshmark. It's like a two-click shopping experience to find what they want. With eBay, the buyers appear to be a lot older. They might have it kind of ingrained in their psyche that eBay is more of an auction site for those unique one-off items. So if you're looking to sell clothing, eBay is probably not going to be the first choice of the younger crowd. It's kind of assumed that the older crowds are more likely to shop on eBay. Now, I'm not saying that only older people shop on eBay. That's the idea that people seem to have ingrained in their head, is that eBay has one pool of buyers and Poshmark has a completely different pool of buyers. So something to keep in mind there. Now, eBay is a site that is a lot more well known. I mean, if you ask anybody about selling or buying online, eBay is probably one of those websites that everybody already knows about, where Poshmark is an app that is a little lesser known. But all of that being said, again, I have started seeing a lot more Poshmark commercials out there, and I've been seeing a lot more sponsored ads for Poshmark. So Poshmark knows that it has some competition and it's starting to get up there. People are starting to know it exists, and users are growing by the thousands daily. And then of course, when it comes to being a seller on either eBay or Poshmark, you have to look at the fact that starting on eBay is really complicated, like really complicated. Starting as a seller on Poshmark is extremely easy and streamlined. You know, if someone were to come to me and say, hey Lindey, I would like to get started selling clothing online, I would not suggest that they start on eBay. I would automatically default to starting on Poshmark. As a matter of fact, that happened with my sister. She wanted to start selling clothes online. I told her, sis, go over to Poshmark. It's so much easier. Now, that's not because I like Poshmark better than eBay. It is strictly because if it was 10 years ago, eBay would have been fine. But in the last few years, there are so many policies that haven't been enacted on eBay. There is so much more to know about the listing process. There's so much more to know about how to calculate shipping on eBay. For a brand new seller, Poshmark is much simpler, so I would tell everybody that's new to go right over to Poshmark. Okay, so now let's talk about the cost of doing business on both platforms. Overall, it appears as though eBay has less fees than Poshmark. However, that can easily change because of the number of fees that you are expected to pay on eBay. So as a general rule, you're expected to pay 10% of a final value fee on eBay. Now that 10% is if you don't have a store subscription. If you do have a store subscription, then it can be anywhere from, I think, maybe 3% up to 9.15%, depending on which category you're selling in. But as a general rule, let's just look and say 10% of the final value fee you have to pay for selling on eBay. Now that does include the cost of shipping. So just because you sell something for $15 plus $5 shipping, you still have to pay 10% on the full $20 purchase, including the cost of shipping. Then you have to pay a fee to PayPal for processing your payment, and then you also have to pay insertion fees to get your listing visible on eBay, unless you have a store subscription and you get a certain amount of those insertion fees for free every single month. But then if you go over the amount of free insertions, you're expected to pay onesies and twosies every time you list something on eBay. And then in order to have a store, you have to pay a monthly store subscription fee. And of course that varies on how big of a store subscription you want. See what I mean about it being really complicated to get started selling on eBay? Point proven. So store subscription fees range anywhere from $8 all the way up to $3,000. It just depends on how big of a store you want, how many free insertions you want every single month, and so on and so forth. So you have to remember to calculate those store fees into your overall cost of selling. Then on top of that, you have promoted listing fees. So if you want to have your listing be sponsored by eBay, you have to pay any percentage you want towards the sale of that item. So whether it's 1%, 20%, or even 100%, yeah, people pay 100% for promoted listings. What? 100% of your promoted listing can vary depending on how much you want to give eBay to make your listing sponsored. Now looking over at Poshmark, Poshmark charges 20% or $2.95 for any sale that's under $15. That's it, 20%. For instance, I can sell a pair of American Eagle jeans on Poshmark for $15 to $20. Now I'm talking about used American Eagle jeans. I can sell for between $15 and $20 on Poshmark, but on eBay, it's more like $10 or $12 plus shipping. So it's a significant difference, especially when you start adding all of those items together. You know, $3, $4, $5 difference really starts to add up really fast. And so that alone makes you willing to pay 20%, you know. Okay, so let's start talking about general rules of the site and listing items for sale on the sites. So right off the bat, when it comes to listing the items, one of the most important factors is pictures. Now on eBay, there is photo editing software in eBay. So when you're going to create your listing, you can do things like cropping, rotating, you can adjust the brightness, you can adjust the contrast, you can do a few basic tweaks to your item. Now on Poshmark, you have none of that. In fact, you have to make sure that your photos are taken completely square, because with the listing, the photos have to be square. It's very similar to Instagram. So if you don't take your photos as square or edit them to make them square, when you go to upload your photo, there's a good chance that your entire image is not going to be complete, because once the photo is going to square up, it's going to be cut off in different places. It's just a nightmare. And then when it comes to editing the photos, you really can't. So whatever picture you take, you got to make sure it's good, because on Poshmark, you really have no way to edit your item like you do on eBay. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Also on eBay, you do have the ability to relist items very, very easily in case you get a return, or if you've accidentally ended an item and you want to relist it. You can also do sell similar. So if you have one listing and then you get a very similar item in a different size and you want to just very quickly hit sell similar and just maybe change the sizing information, you can do that. However, on Poshmark, you cannot. If you do listings on Poshmark, each one has to be done from scratch. And as someone who does new with tags items, I do find that very, very frustrating on a personal level, because there might be an instance where I have the same shirt and I have listed all of the listings that I'm gonna do, and then I get another order in and I have more of that shirt, and I either have to add a multiple quantity or I have to start the listing over from scratch. So that can be a little aggravating, or I have the same item but it's a different color and I just want to change the pictures but keep the majority of the listing the same. You see where I'm going. So on eBay, that is a beneficial tool. So if I get a similar item, I can literally hit sell similar and then list a new item with only having to change a few different things. On Poshmark, you have to start from scratch, which can be a bummer. Also, another benefit that eBay has that Poshmark does not is the ability to combine orders. So if you have one buyer buy multiple things from you, whether or not they pay for it all at once or they pay for them separately, eBay makes it very, very simple to combine orders. On Poshmark, it is not a possibility. I have emailed the company, and much to my dismay, if somebody purchases two separate items, with two different transactions, it is up to me as the seller and the buyer to cancel one of the transactions, or however many transactions there are, and have them repurchase these items as a bundle, which does not sound like a lot of fun. So if someone makes two separate purchases, you have to ship them two separate orders, two separate labels. Otherwise, you can't do it. So there's no combining orders unless they make an original bundle purchase. On eBay, you can combine orders, which is a perk. I don't know if Poshmark will have in the future. Hopefully they do. Keeping on the same trend with eBay, you can reach customer service fairly easy compared to Poshmark. Now, you might be sitting on hold with eBay for a while, or the eBay rep you get you might not really care for, but if you have something like Anchor Support or eBay Concierge, you can get a hold of a rep very, very easily. On Poshmark, you don't have that option at all. On Poshmark, you have to reach out to customer service via email, and it usually takes a good 24 hours to get a response. So if you have an immediate problem that needs to be addressed, Poshmark is on the losing end of that. Now, a lot of us have experienced, as of late, glitches, lots of site problems, lots of technical issues, and eBay is starting to become pretty well known for these glitches and problems. Whereas on Poshmark, I personally have not really experienced any glitches. The only issues I've ever experienced on Poshmark is maybe the Poshmark app isn't working very well, or when you're trying to list a new item for sale on the desktop, maybe it's just running a little bit slow. But I haven't really experienced any big technical issues or glitches on Poshmark. On eBay, we get them all the time. And then the last part of this section I wanted to talk about is activity. So with eBay, it's kind of a list it and forget it kind of situation to an extent. So you create your listing, you select the duration that you want this listing to be, whether it's, you know, a 5-day auction, a 7-day buy it now, 10 days, 30 days, good till canceled. You get to make the call on how long you want your listing to run. You set the price, you do an auction, you do a buy it now, you figure out whatever it is you want to do, and you just let it go. On Poshmark, you really cannot do that. On Poshmark, when you list an item, you have to continue to engage the items that you've listed, otherwise you will get no sales. Now, I'm not saying that on Poshmark you have to share your closet 12 times a day, but you certainly cannot expect to list items on Poshmark and have them sell if you don't share it at least once a day. So you are expected to be super engaged and highly active with Poshmark. Now, this can be a good thing because this is where Poshmark kind of has a leg up with the activity to eBay. Now, the more active you are on Poshmark, the more likely you are to get sales. So if you share your items multiple times a day, you can drive traffic to your item, in turn increasing your sales. On eBay, you really don't have that option. The only thing that you can really do to push a sale in your store is by actually running sales in your store, by using Markdown Manager and running sales, which we have to jump through a whole bunch of hoops to do that anymore. But even then, running a sale in your store, you can't really guarantee any sort of outcome on eBay. You just basically run your markdown and hope it drives enough traffic to your store to let you get some sales. Now, Poshmark this year has started something that really has turned into a game changer for a lot of people, and it's the offer to likers rule. So if anybody likes your item on Poshmark, you know, clicks the little heart, then you can send them a private offer direct within seconds of them liking the item. And the reason why I say this is a game changer is because you can submit that private offer and get a sale right on the spot. Personally, the other day, I listed a handful of brand new items, and these were items that were previously listed on eBay. I put them over on Poshmark. I had one person come along and click on that little heart and like my item. I sent them a private offer and they bought it. So within 90 minutes of listing an item on Poshmark, I sold it to someone who liked the item. Within 90 minutes, that item was sold. Can you do that on eBay? No, you can't do that on eBay. You basically list the item, cross your fingers, and wait for it to sell. Poshmark, you can really drive that traffic to your item by sharing a lot and then sending out private offers, where you do not have that capability on eBay at all. But then at the same time, you have to want to be really active on the platform. If you're just looking for a platform where you can list your items and just wait for someone to buy it, then eBay is probably the platform for you. If you don't mind being highly active in your store and constantly sending offers and constantly sharing your items, then Poshmark is probably a better choice. So the last little bit of comparison that I want to do is over shipping and returns. So now on eBay, accepting returns is highly, highly encouraged. You can opt out of returns, and now I'm talking about returns in general. I'm not just talking about free returns, buyer paid returns, seller paid returns, whatever kind of returns. 30-day returns, 60-day returns, returns for the rest of your life. Any kind of return. You can select which option you want on eBay, but eBay really does highly encourage its sellers to accept returns. Now on Poshmark, returns are only accepted, which would be comparable to an item not as described on eBay. On Poshmark, the seller is only expected to take the return if the buyer receives the item and it's not what the listing stated it was. Now that means that a buyer cannot submit a return just because the item doesn't fit, which for a lot of us that sell on eBay that deal with a lot of returns where it didn't fit the buyer, that is definitely beneficial. Now, I'm not gonna say that it never happens on Poshmark, but as a general rule policy, returns just aren't accepted. You don't have to accept returns unless Poshmark steps in and makes you take it. Now, eBay on the other hand, if you have a no return policy, if the buyer pushes enough, eBay can step in and tell you that you have to take the return, even if you have a no return policy. So, unfortunately, over on eBay, there is kind of this idea of serial returns. And I know a lot of us, especially with the switch over to free returns, I know a lot of us are really feeling returns lately. So if you're not wanting to deal with a lot of customer returns, Poshmark might be the better platform for it. Now let's talk about the cost of shipping for both platforms. So on Poshmark, there is just a flat $6.49 fee for shipping that is always charged to the buyer unless the seller opts to give the buyer discounted shipping. So for $6.49, you can ship something that's 8 ounces all the way up to 5 pounds, which is really awesome for bundled orders and really heavy items. Now, with eBay, the shipping is a little bit more complicated, but if you're shipping lightweight items, eBay might be more beneficial to you, because if you're only selling one shirt that weighs 8 ounces, you don't want to have to expect your buyer to pay $6.49 when instead you can ship it for $3. See where I'm going with that? So if you're a seller that's expecting someone to buy one lightweight item, eBay is definitely the platform for that, because you don't have to worry about there being that flat rated shipping. But then on the other side, if you are expecting to move more merchandise by having someone bundle a bunch of items together, eBay is probably not the best site to do that, because shipping is going to get a lot more expensive depending on how heavy your items are. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is as the seller dealing with shipping. So on Poshmark, shipping is so simple. It really is. The buyer buys your item and then Poshmark emails you the shipping label. You print out the shipping label, you put it literally on any package you want, as long as it's not a Priority Express box or envelope. Priority Express is the only kind of box that you cannot use. Or FedEx or UPS, you get the point. I'm talking about any unlabeled box, whether it's Priority or just a brown box, of some kind. You can use any box or envelope you want, even if it says flat rate on it, even if it says regional rate on it. You can use any priority shipping box, and you can get those for free at the post office, so that's always a bonus perk. Now keep in mind though, if you do use flat rate boxes or flat rate envelopes, you can still only go up to the 5 pounds that the shipping label covers. It's not like when you buy a label on eBay and you pay $6.90 for a flat rate envelope and you can ship any amount of weight you want. It's just literally, see, I'm already starting to get confusing, which brings me over to my next part. Shipping on eBay can be very confusing to a new seller. So there's a lot of different options for shipping. You have to worry about weighing each individual package. You have to make sure that you're putting it in the correct envelope. You have to make sure you're using a correct box. If you're shipping something first class, you have to make sure that it doesn't say priority on the package anywhere. Otherwise you're paying for a different label, and then if you end up getting that mistake, then your buyer has to end up paying extra. And see what I'm talking about? Shipping on eBay can be super confusing to new sellers, whereas over on Poshmark, you get the label, you don't have to worry about weighing the package if you know it's less than 5 pounds. It's just much simpler. But over on eBay, you have to know, how to round up your weights. You have to have a shipping scale. You have to make sure that you're using the proper supplies. You need to make sure that you're doing the correct weight on your item. You have to make sure you input everything correctly when you're doing the listing, when you are processing the sale. It's just, it can get really super complicated. And that means that if you're a new seller, shipping is super duper intimidating. So if you are easily intimidated or you just don't seem to understand how shipping works, Poshmark again is probably the more simpler platform. But all right, you guys, that's all I have to say. My throat is dry, my jaw is hurting. I'm not even sure if the last little bit of that video is even gonna make sense because I've been talking so much. This video is gonna be so long. I am so sorry. Anyways, I really hope that this video helped you kind of weigh some pros and cons of each platform. I really hope that it helped you kind of look at the two platforms side by side to kind of, decide which platform might be better for you. If you're looking for a more simple selling experience, you might want to consider Poshmark as opposed to eBay, but then at the same time, eBay is not as high maintenance as Poshmark is because you have to admit, constantly sharing, constantly sending offers, constantly having to interact with multiple people and on a social level, it can start to become a lot. You start finding yourself on your phone or on the app, on the computer, constantly dealing with Poshmark, whereas you don't have to really worry about that with eBay. So really, as a seller, it's up to you to decide which benefits outweigh the misfortunes of each platform. And then at the same time, you might as well consider both platforms. Maybe focus on one platform primarily while you're getting to know the other platform. It's really up to you. Sometimes one platform does better in one season than the other platform does in the same season. So it's really up to you. I hope that all of my little nuggets of information were beneficial to you. If you like this video and you actually made it all the way through it, give me a thumbs up and let me know. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed to me yet, I really hope you will. And also check down in the video description for useful links. And I will see you guys with my next video. Bye.